better prepare our people for the growth of the future. We are in now very, very exciting times. And with these exciting times, it is indeed an honor to be working with folks such as UOG and Robert Underwood and all of you here today. We believe you're visionary, and with that, our collaboration with our administration, we do believe that Guam and Micronesia will reach its greatest height.
We try to do as much as we can to bring attention to exactly where we need to be, not next year, not 5 years from now, but in the year 2050. And that's really the theme, is to try to figure out, for those of us my age, our first objective is just to survive until 2050. But the more important objective is that as I see the next generation and the following generation, and I've been able to enjoy some grandchildren, and I've been able to enjoy my own children, wonder how this island will sustain itself in the year 2050, so that those children who are now in K through 12, when they become grandparents, what will Guam look like? How will it sustain itself? How will it survive economically? What kind of energy, how will it deal with energy? How will it engage the natural resources that we have today, and how will we protect them?
I would like to welcome our plenary speaker, Mr. Alex Steffen. Let's give him a big half-a-day and a round of applause.
How's your day going? Yeah? How's your tomorrow going?
It's going to be great.
That's really the question. That's the question that we never ask ourselves, that we need to start to talk more about. We live in a society that is absolutely present-focused. And it's present-focused for some reasons that make total sense. Human beings aren't all that good about thinking about the future, about planning for the future, but it's also present-focused by design, because an awful lot of the things we're doing right now, no sane human being would participate in if we were thinking 20, 30, 50 years ahead. That's just the fact. And I could stand up here and really lay it on you about what's happening in the world. We live in a world that's in an extreme crisis. But that's not really the point, because I don't think the point is to sit here and talk about how bad tomorrow could be. I think the point is to get together and to start to talk about how good tomorrow could be if we change things now.
What do you need? Well, it begins and ends with education. Sustainability means that all the skills, all the talent required is here, and you only get that if you have trained and educated, two different things. Trained to do tasks, educated to think. And we've captivated the youth of Guam and the region to be trained and educated and to stay here and do well. I think that's achievable.
We have to consider alternatives from an energy security and, i.e. this conference, sustainable energy future.
It shouldn't be shocking to say that we live on a finite planet and there's only so much stuff on it. We know, for example, that we are running out of oil. Right? That's not a radical statement. You know that there's only a finite amount of oil on the planet. We know that we can only access so much of that oil in any kind of reasonably economic way. And people who are very mainstream outside of the US political debate are telling us loud and clear that we can expect to reach the point where we have produced the majority of the cheap oil that can be produced.
It's very imprudent to rely on a single source of fuel. No other utility in the mainland has 100% reliance on number 6 oil.
Things that we used to think of as cheap, like concrete, got much more expensive precisely because there was a global building boom. Right? People in China, people in India, people elsewhere were competing for the same limited supplies of concrete. Right? We just couldn't make it fast enough. Well, that is the new reality. We are now competing with people everywhere around the world for a limited supply of resources.
I can see that energy needs for any home is probably one of the largest cost item that consumes your disposable income.
You need to find ways to generate revenue that doesn't come from Guam. Nice Starbucks on the corner, nice retail operations, nice landscaping services, wonderful little things that are consumed by money that's generated here are great. But how are you bringing money in? How have the impacts of what happened in Japan on March 11th affected the Guam economy? I don't know for sure, but I suspect there's been a little dip in tourism. Acts of God are going to happen around the world. They're going to affect Guam. So we need to have an economy here to be sustainable that has the ability to absorb shocks.
In the emerging environmentalism and the new approaches to economics, there's an ecological approach that says we must factor in the cost of natural capital. In doing so, it's hard to put a cost on natural capital. And part of the problem there is when they do, they say, well, where do you get these figures from? Who have made these up? Let's argue about this. But then when disaster happens, we quickly find out what the cost of natural capital is.
Part of the reasons to do the kind of the sexy things like the solar arrays and things is it causes people to have a conversation. Okay, that's a pretty neat looking thing. What is that about? And then it allows people to talk about energy, and maybe that means a few more people will turn off their lights when they leave a room. Small things like that as behavior modification, but when 170,000 people do that all at once and reduce that daily demand, that's a good thing.
I think a key of really being a model for your island is being proactive, which means not just taking the initiative, but actually doing it. And I think you really need to emphasize that to the community, because going green isn't just, a group. You really have to get others involved. You really have to get the island involved, because going green isn't just, a trend. It's supposed to be a lifestyle. We're supposed to be, practicing sustainable practices every day, and hopefully we'll be able to inspire others to do the same.
I'm very happy about this conference. What we've been able to do is not only bring together some very inspirational speakers, but we brought in some really vibrant young people, high school students, community college students, University of Guam students, and of course our own sustainability rock stars, the UOG interns. And by listening to some of these speeches and by interacting in these small group breakout presentations, we've learned about everything from alternative energy sources to climate change to policy making to learning about how to sustain tourism, to its relationship to culture and language and the environment. And it's this kind of conversation and it's this kind of engagement that really leads to positive change, because we're relying on that human spark that there's three things that we need in order to effectuate change. We need imagination, innovation, and incentives. And educational institutions have to rely on all three. In fact, all public policy making has to rely on all three. And so relying on the imagination of some of the young people here and the innovation of some of the people with more experience, and hopefully getting the policymakers to understand that they need to build real incentives into this, I think we're going to have a very safe, secure, and sustainable 2050.